is the wealth in this economy to fund a fully funded above inflation pay award for teachers and all public servants. And considering that Labour got elected on a manifesto of 6,500 new teachers and a new deal for working people, I would recommend that they publish it and implement and fund it.
And what if they don't?
Well, then I think strike action would be inevitable.
Well, the Times reports today that ministers have been told that millions of public sector workers, including teachers and nurses, should be given above inflation pay rises. It says that independent pay review bodies representing more than 500,000 teachers and 1.3 million NHS workers have both recommended pay rises of about 5.5%. Well, that is significantly more than the 3% the government budgeted for and creates a significant headache for the new Chancellor Rachel Reeves as she prepares for her first budget. The new government has repeated its warnings of the dire state of the public finances, but if it does not accept the pay recommendations, it could lead to clashes with the unions. Well, let's talk to Daniel Kebede, General Secretary of the National Education Union. Good afternoon to you, Daniel.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you with us. What do you make of these recommendations, which the Times is reporting today, of increases of around 5.5% for many teachers?
Well, it's important to say that the STRB report has not been published yet, so this is speculation, but we have been campaigning for an above inflation pay award this year because education is in the midst of a deep and severe recruitment and retention crisis. We currently have class sizes where 1 million children are in classes of 31 or more. We can't recruit and retain, and we do really need that above inflation pay award to get people into the profession, but most importantly, to keep them in.
But what we've been hearing from the new government since it was elected, from the new Prime Minister, from Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, saying, well, look, we've had a look at the books and things are even worse than we expected. The public finances are very tight indeed. We are currently, the deficit is about 100% of our GDP, and they are going to have to keep a very tight rein on things. I mean, won't you and your members simply have to accept that?
Well, we would welcome the publication of the STRB report. If it is 5.5%, then the onus is on government to implement that and, most importantly, fund it. Schools are crying out for funding, and it would be highly problematic for that award not to be funded. It would lead to a worsening crisis in education. You know, we don't have enough support staff. Children with SEND are not getting the support they need. But MPs had a 5.5% pay award this year. There is the wealth in the economy to fund it, and so I would hope that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer would. Failure to implement it would be highly problematic and inflammatory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a vote that was held earlier this year where the National Education Union voted to hold a formal strike ballot if they reject the summer's pay offer. I mean, does that indicate that if you don't get what the independent pay review bodies formally propose, that you would be prepared to walk out on strike again?
Well, that was an indicative ballot, but it would have reached the legal threshold had it been a formal ballot. 90% of our members, on a turnout of over 50%, voted yes to strike action for a fully funded above inflation pay award. Now, we absolutely want to avoid a situation like that. So it's really important that we see the STRB report published. And if it is a 5.5% pay award, that is implemented with the appropriate funding.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at figures from the Institute for Fiscal Studies saying that that would cost around an extra £3 billion. I mean, if the Department for Education, if schools were told that they simply had to find that money from their own budgets, would that be a way for the government to avoid having to raise taxes or raise borrowing?
I think government need to recognise and I'm sure they do, the crisis in funding that exists in education at the moment. And I appreciate there are tough choices to make, but the energy giants made £420 billion in profit during the cost of living crisis. There is the wealth in this economy to fund a fully funded above inflation pay award for teachers and all public servants. And considering that Labour got elected on a manifesto of 6,500 new teachers and a new deal for working people, I would recommend that they publish it and implement and fund it.
And what if they don't?
Well, then I think strike action would be inevitable.
What makes you say that?
Well, the STRB process is the government's process. It's not our process. As the General Secretary of the largest education union in Europe, I would far rather prefer directly negotiating with government the teacher pay award. However, we have an independent pay review body process. It's the government's process. They would have made that recommendation. And so it would be on government to implement it. You have to bear in mind that last year, Gillian Keegan, Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak implemented a 6.5% pay award based on the STRB's recommendation following our dispute. If Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves were not going to follow suit, that would be doing something that even the last Conservative government did not do. It would be highly problematic, and it would set us off to a very bad start, which would be incredibly unfortunate considering the work that Bridget Phillipson has put in to resetting the relationship with the profession.
Do you fear, though, nonetheless, given everything we've heard from Rachel Reeves, that the government may want to set the tone for other public sector pay rises as well by turning around and saying, look, under the current circumstances, these are simply not increases that we can afford. We have to stick to the 3% for this year, even if they can afford something a bit more beyond that further down the line?
Well, the government has choices to make around how to raise further revenue, should that be needed. But as I said, there is certainly the wealth in the economy to ensure that there are fully funded pay awards across the public sector, and government should follow suit. They were elected on a new deal for working people. Teachers, doctors, nurses, support staff, civil servants, they have had their pay eroded over the past decade, and our public services are in absolute dire straits. Health and education both have severe recruitment and retention crises, driven by low pay and high workloads. Now, to reset, the number one signal of a reset would be fully funded pay awards.
As you mentioned, one of the key pledges from the new government is to recruit 6,500 new teachers.
Yeah.
Are you clear yet how that is going to be achieved and what the timescale on that is going to be?
Well, I've seen that the Department for Education are launching new adverts, and those are welcome. But the fact of the matter is, teacher pay has declined by 25% since 2010. The last government has consistently missed its recruitment targets, and we are hemorrhaging the experience from our classroom, and that is incredibly wasteful. For every 6 teachers you lose, you have to re-recruit 10 because not all complete the course or go into the state sector. And education is very much on its knees, and that's why we need this urgent action from government.
Daniel Kebede, General Secretary of the National Education Union. Thank you so much for joining us.